Hey everybody, good morning. Last night I was working on a tutorial just to sort of reaffirm something that I think Nico was really interested in, if I'm not mistaken, which was mesh lighting. And as I was working on it, Maya, of course. And anyhow, so we're back. I'm pretty well rested now, and I'm working on a compound graft here that I'm actually going to do a separate tutorial about this, and I might publish the graph and let you guys kind of use it. But for now, let's just talk a bit about mesh lighting. Right now, I do have a sky dome light set in as sort of our main light for the moment. And if we were to render this shot, we would see, give me 1 second, let me minimize that, and bring that up. This is what we would get, nothing fancy, nothing special. We know what we get with these sky dome lights. However, we did discuss being able to use actual meshes as lights. Now, there's two things I'm kind of interested in here. One, I've never tried using Bifrost strands as lights, which could be pretty damn interesting. The other one is we're just going to start off using regular geometry as a light. So any polygonal geometry will work. I need to go to polygon primitives. I'm going to create some cylinders here. Remember, every time we create a cylinder, it's just a good idea to turn subdivision caps to 0 unless we're certain that we really need those. And I want to turn this subdivision axis up pretty high so that I have a nice round cylinder. And I'm just going to kind of use these to create some abstract forms here in this space. Now I'm going to create the first one, kind of like so, maybe a bit longer, I don't know. Let's see. And then I'll duplicate it if I want to use more lights right here. Hey, my little corgi's coming to visit us in the studio. So what I want to do here is I want to highlight my geometry, this polygon cylinder, and under the Arnold menu here, I'm going to go to lights and we're going to convert it to a mesh light. Now, once that's done, there's a few things we need to look at in here. One, exposure. That's going to be, of course, how brightly it lights the scene. I generally recommend you guys to leave intensity at 1 as its default. So we'll set its exposure. Let's start with about 8. And because we'll have multiples in the scene, we might be able to build up, instead of going to like 12 or 14, all 3 of them or 4 or 5 of them at an exposure of 8 might be adequate to our purposes. The next thing is I want the light to be visible. So I'm going to tick that box right there. And here's the thing. Mesh lights are pretty noisy lights. It means we need to set some pretty high sample rates for mesh lights to look good in a scene. But we'll start here. So by starting and setting our mesh light samples at a minimum of 3, usually I'll go to 4. Minimum of 3 will be enough for now. And then, like I said, I usually turn on and use the color temperature. I want these to be kind of warm, so we're going to go for 3200 degrees Kelvin. If you want them cooler, you can actually push towards blue by going into a much higher, not physically accurate, but a much higher Kelvin. So 3200 degrees is kind of close to a sunset color. Let's take a look really quickly at our render and see what we've got so far. All right, so there we go. You can see where it's lighting these filaments up, these strands. We can push this exposure. Let's go to about 10 for now, and then let's see how it looks. All right, not too bad. I'm going to create, and I apologize, I notice I'm saying a lot. Terrible habit, terrible habit. Control D, going to duplicate this one. Let's give it a little bit of a rotation here. Oops. And now you'll notice something. You're like, well, where is the other poly cylinder? So what we did is we duplicated the actual light itself. Does that make sense? And now you'll notice, like when I go to transform it, it's acting really, really weird. So here's what I always advise people to do. is, let me Control Z that again. So I'm going to Control Z before I duplicated that light. I really want to duplicate. I'm just going to copy paste, Control C V, the actual cylinder itself, like that. Now it still has a light attached, and you'll notice, whoop, no, that's acting a little wonky too. That's really weird. I guess because their transforms are locked together. I'll be honest, never really had this problem before, but we're gonna solve it. We're gonna solve it like this. Let's delete these guys out. We can actually solve it a few ways. We can simply make another cylinder. We can do what I'm about to do, which is, I think for me it's easier. I'm just going to delete the mesh light off of here and duplicate this cylinder and make them each into mesh lights. Yeah, good. Our transforms are fine. I don't want it intersecting with any strands in here as much as I can. I kind of want it to just be these abstract forms. Control D, I'm going to duplicate that one again, and we'll just kind of, I think something like this. Again, I'm looking for an interesting composition, interesting figure-ground relationship. Let's maybe pull this one forward like so. All right, the easiest way to do this, sorry about the damn it. All right, I'm going to shift select all of these, and I'm going to combine the meshes, and then just turn that one big mesh into a Arnold mesh light instead of having 3 of them to deal with, unless you really feel the need to have controls that are separate for each light, which does happen. I've been in that scenario. Unless you're in that scenario, we can just combine these meshes and turn this one large mesh into the mesh light. Let's set that exposure again at about 10. Let's use color temperature, like I said, about 3200 degrees Kelvin. Let's make our light visible, and let's put our samples at a minimum of about, I say a minimum of 4 for me. I'm on a very high resource system. It doesn't seem to cause it any issues. However, even if you're on a laptop, I say a minimum of 3 for these samples. And now, there we go. So we can hit play on this. Let's see what happens if we dim our sky dome light here and just let, there we go, and just let the mesh lights do all of the lighting for us. Let me enlarge this a bit. I realize it's very large on my screen, however it's probably quite small on yours. And the last thing we're going to do here is I would like to, especially since we're doing still renders, I would like to add a bit of light bloom to these areas. So I'm going to come here in my render window, my Arnold render window, add an imager. We're going to add a lens effects imager. And for that, we're just going to start to bump the strength up. Be careful with this. You don't want to go cuckoo. I always see people, you know, unless that's what you want. You know, these things can really glow. However, I generally want just a nice little bit of sort of realistic light bloom. For me, that's nice for a shot like this. All right. And now, last but not least, let's talk about, no, I'm going to leave that for another tutorial. I'm going to make sure that you guys have to come and watch these things to actually get some information. The next tutorial will be about rendering and my expectations for the visual render from you guys and how we set those up. Remember, if I turn off this Arnold denoiser, I might not have as pretty a scene as I would have with it. However, since we're doing still images, the Arnold denoiser is perfectly acceptable to use right now. So for now, I think this is an easy, pretty short tutorial using mesh lights. Before we go, let's try to crash the whole thing, and let's see if we can turn these into mesh lights. I don't know. I don't think you can. We're gonna find out. Bifrost graph. It'll probably say no appropriate geometry found. Yep. No meshes, because these are procedural. That would have been so cool though. Now we can go into the shader that I have assigned to them. If I open my hypershade here and we graph this out, I did assign an AI standard surface material to them. I can go into that AI standard surface material and turn up emission, which is not true. It's not true lighting the way the Arnold strand lights, the Arnold mesh lights are doing. I'm all over the place today. However, it may give us, especially with this lens effect on it, it may give us a nice kind of visual effect. So you can see that they are emitting light. I'm not a huge fan of emission. It rarely looks very good to me, as you can see here. If I wanted to, though, I could play with this threshold, and I think I can get, there you go, I can get the emissions to glow as well. So your mileage may vary. I encourage you to kind of play around with both. All right, that's it for now. Enjoy. Oh, hey, remember to smash that like button. What?